Alright, we are live. Wonder if I can turn this camera around. Yep, there we go. Alright. We are live on YouTube. Never been live on YouTube before, so bear with me and be patient. We are doing a presentation tonight. You know what? We might even change the format for that. Oh man, this sucks. Talk about not properly prior planning. Sorry guys. We just jumped over here from TikTok. We were doing a live over on TikTok, but TikTok decided to be jerks. So it's not gonna let me. That sucks. Alright. Let's get it as straight as possible. We have one person. I got a few of you coming. So I'll give it a like. Hey, there's Sarah. Hey Sarah. Hey Teresa. Alright. So we're going to start all over from the beginning. And what we're going to do is we're going to do how to create an herbal remedy. Now, we were over on TikTok, but they kicked us off for the night, which is fine. I've been kind of wanting to come here for a while, so. There we go. We're going to talk about how to create an herbal remedy. Now, what's the, let me see if I can, I can do that too. All right, hold on. Wait, there I am. How to create an herbal remedy. Alright, so I can see what's going on. I can kind of feel what we're doing as we talk. I know I'm not in the screen, you know, but I'm not the key to this whole thing, and you guys gotta be able to see this, so probably do that, but I want to make sure you can see the screen. Look, my technology is not the best, so this is what I have. Oh, hi Nini. How many do we have in here? We got 6 people. That's cool. Maybe we can get some more. I don't know how to share. I don't know how to share on here. I mean, I'm one of the 6. But... Okay, give it a like. Six viewers. It's not bad. I got 1,300 people, so maybe we can get a few people to pop in. We're going to talk about how to create an herbal remedy. This is making it from scratch. When you make an herbal remedy, how do you go about doing it? One of the things that irritates me most, we have more than 6 people? Where are we at with people? 9 watching. Alright, so hey, welcome everybody who's watching. We're going to talk about how to create an herbal remedy. What I mean by that is, we're not going to, well, okay, so if you stick around long enough, at the end we'll go ahead and we'll create an herbal remedy. And we'll show you how, we'll figure something out and we'll make something. It'll be like a free recipe for you for bearing with me and watching through the video. Now, we're not the highest technology person, and, you know, I am no Timcast, but I do have a lot of information to share, and once my technology gets better, I'll be able to do a better presentation for folks who watch. We're up to 10 people watching, which is not bad. I mean, that's probably better than what I would have on TikTok right now. So, but if you guys can give this video a like as we go, that would certainly help a lot. That would be if we get 10 likes on this, that'll get more people wanting to watch. Now, you don't have to tap the screen or anything like that, but if you can give the actual video a like, that would certainly help it out a bit and get us a little further along. So most of you guys have already seen this, but I think there's probably a few of you who were any of you not on TikTok? Anybody here not on TikTok? I can't really see the comments. Oh, I definitely need a moderator. There's live chat. Let's see what the live chat's saying. There we are. All right. Hey, we got live chat going. Where is the like button? Okay, so you have to exit out of the live chat, and then at the very bottom of the screen, there'll be like a live button, like you would typically see for any of your videos. And it'll give you an option to give the like button, the like. And then we have our live chat, so I can actually see. I appreciate you guys sharing it, man. That's awesome. Hi, there's so many people here. We got 12 people. That's good. That's good. This is my very first YouTube live. A little intimidating to get on a bigger platform like this. For a while there, I was giving all my love to TikTok, but I mean, if YouTube's gonna let me present my my information, then I am certainly gonna make sure that I'll share it here too. So we're going to talk about how to create an herbal remedy today. The problem with this that I see with a lot of this nowadays, other herbalists, and I'm not going to name anybody in particular, and I'm not going to go ahead and throw anybody under the bus because that's not what this is about. When I see other herbalists and people who do natural healing take the same approach as allopathic medicine or your scientific doctors, pharmaceutical medicine, they tend to go after the symptoms, right? Everybody just jumps in and go after the symptoms and the symptoms and the symptoms, which is okay, right, in the moment, right? It's okay to get rid of the symptoms, right? That's why quality, that's where that whole quality of life thing comes from. However, that's where they stop. That's where it seems to stop. Okay, I'm not putting down doctors. I'm not saying doctors are dumb or any of that stuff. I'm saying that is probably the poorest way to go about doing it. And because I mean, if you're just treating the symptoms, the patient never gets better. Not really. You know, they have moments where they're better, and they have moments when they don't have the symptoms. But when you're giving somebody a chemical that their body doesn't agree with, and ultimately your body doesn't agree with these chemicals, then you're going to have your side effects. Well, then you have side effects, and you have this other condition that pops up. So now you take this other pill, and it's a big long chain. Well, herbalists do the same thing, right? There's herbalists and natural healers that do the exact same thing. Oh, well, you have a cough. Here, take this. And in the moment, that's okay. But why do they have the cough? Is it a sinus cough? Is it due to lung congestion? Do they have a cold, a flu? It's relevant to the cough. Lung cancer. It's you got to be careful. Yeah, the Mullen will work for a minute, but it's not necessarily known. It does, but it doesn't cure lung cancer. And giving somebody just throwing something out there, here, take this Mullen for your cough. Well, that's great. You've taken care of the symptom, but the problem's only going to get worse because you haven't addressed that issue either. So doctors have their role to play in that they can certainly tell you what's wrong with you, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in their ability to be able to fix you because I don't think that's what they're trying to do. Right? That's my own opinion on that, and most people can take that any way they want. We're back up to 12 watching. That's cool. All right. I'm not trying to interrupt. Okay, here we go. So when it comes to herbal healing, natural healing in general, you can't just throw a blanket solution to the problem because it's not always the same. The first step is to identify the problem. You have to figure out what's wrong, and so obviously you start like what any doctor would do. I'm not saying you do this for yourself. I'm not saying it's self-diagnosed. I'm not saying that you need to treat, cure, or prevent any illness for yourself. Use a qualified medical professional. I'm just talking about this is what I do for myself. So what do? I figure out what my symptoms are. What are my symptoms? Okay, so I go through this list of stuff in my symptoms. Okay, so if I have a cold, for instance, it's gonna present with a certain kind or a certain style of symptoms, and I'm gonna address them that way. Okay, so I have the fever, a stuffy head, or lung congestion. I'm lethargic, I'm coughing a lot, or whatever. All of this indicates, and I've run a few other people that have had colds, so that kind of indicates that I probably have a cold, so that I can address it that way. How long have I had the problem? Well, if it just started, then it's pretty clear that it's probably just a cold. It's a good guess anyway, and you can take the appropriate steps to address that issue: cold, the flu, something like that. What conditions have the same symptoms? Okay, so here's, and this frustrates me sometimes, and I didn't mention this over on the other place, but this one here always gets me. So when it comes to what conditions have the same symptoms, I want you to think about it. I'm going to use the most simple analogy that most people can understand, because most people have had a cold, and you either have an allergy or you know somebody who does. So you look at your cold allergy symptoms, you look at your cold symptoms, and then you look at your allergy symptoms, and you'll find that oftentimes those symptoms are the exact same, but the approach to the treatment wouldn't be, right? So if I have a cold, then I want to use immune boosters or immunostimulators, immunomodulators, something that's going to help get my immune system functioning at its optimum. But you're going to want other things that are going to address the issue too, right? Because you're going to want to, if it's a cold, you're going to want to make sure you ingest things that have antiviral properties to help eliminate the virus while simultaneously taking care of the symptoms that are present. And then if you have allergies, right, the last thing you want to take is allergy boosters, because your immune system is already hyperinflated. Your immune system is attacking the body because you have toxins in it or outside substances that the body doesn't like. So your white blood cell gets higher, white blood cell count gets higher, your histamines get higher, inflammation rises. I mean, it just turns into, the itchy, swelly, or even worse, side effects that you get from having an allergic reaction. Now, if you take an immune booster, you're going to do the exact opposite of what you're trying to do, right? So the whole goal of taking an immune booster is to boost your immune system and have a really strong approach to the problem. And, when you're having an allergic reaction, you already have a really strong approach to the problem. So much so that your body's saying, whoa, 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 I can't take it. So you have to modulate your immune system. So you would do herbs like, say, nettle. Stinging nettle is a good herb. Astragalus is another good immunomodulating herb. Bilberry and eyebright. These are for allergy symptoms. Now you can use bilberry and eyebright for colds too, but they work better for allergies because they also lower histamine levels as well. So with colds, you have the same type of congestion. You'd want to stick with your mints, and you'd use your vitamin C for your immune booster. Goji berry is your good immune booster. Echinacea, golden seal, both of which. Now they say that echinacea is an immunomodulator, but if you look at it and you look at how echinacea works, that is actually an immune booster. It is significantly more immune booster than it is immunomodulator. Will it modulate your immune system? Yes, to a point. But it always increases your T cell count when you take it. So that's giving your immune system the extra boost that it doesn't need to attack your body. So you want to try to avoid, things like those, herbs like that. And, so you really want to know what conditions have similar symptoms, because you'll have other type of internal symptoms that are similar but aren't necessarily the same condition, and you can't treat them the same way. And then the last thing you want to ask yourself while you're doing all this is, what am I trying to accomplish with this remedy? So here I am making this remedy. I know what my symptoms are. I figured out how long I've had the problem. I know what conditions have the same symptoms, and I think I've narrowed it down, or a doctor has narrowed it down for me. And I know. So what am I going to try to accomplish with this remedy? Now, if you're using a homeopathic doctor or a holistic doctor or some other, traditional Chinese medicine doctor, they will be able to give you what you're trying to accomplish with. They'll be able to give you a more concrete approach to what you're trying to accomplish. Some people do, like for myself, I do my own research. Don't get me wrong, I still go to a doctor, but to get clarifying information, because it's relevant. I'm not a doctor, I'm just an herb guy. Right? So there's that. Okay, we still have 12. Good. We've only been going for 12 minutes. We're doing much better on this one than we did the last one. Let me get into the group chat and see if I've missed anything. Have I missed anything? What is the like? Okay. I really appreciate you watching, Robert Bennett. I kept getting migraines after coffee. I didn't take the medicine for my headache. I quit drinking caffeine in general. Yeah, there's Ben. Hi, Ben. Let's see. Let me answer, Jacob. I want to answer your question real quick. And I keep getting migraines after coffee. Well, okay, so caffeine is a vasoconstrictor, right? So even though it gives you an energy boost, not caffeine in particular, but coffee. Actually, that's part of one of my herbs of the day that's coming up. And I've gotten some sponsorships that I got to discuss with you guys that I think you might like. And if you don't, most of you don't know this about me, but if I don't believe in any particular product, I'm not going to promote it. Like Elder Herb Shock, we make these things here. I believe in these products. That's why I promote them, because we've put a lot of effort into this. So, but these other products, they're not competitors. They do different kinds of things than we do. So it'll work well, right? There was a few I had to turn down, right? Because they direct competitors, and unless we're selling them in the store, right? It didn't feel right for me. And I don't know, it just didn't feel right to try to take their particular product if we're making the same thing. It's just my opinion. I have some morals. What can I say? So when you have, if you're getting migraines, and if you're sure they're migraines, they have herbs that have known to work for vasodilation, and vasodilation would be your blood vessels actually relaxing and dilating and allowing for more blood flow. Because once those blood vessels constrict and they get real tight, that causes that intense pain, that pressure. It feels like your head's going to explode. And you take herbs like you got ginkgo biloba. You have feverfew. Even the FDA acknowledges that feverfew is an herb that can break the blood-brain barrier and it relieves migraines. Skullcap is another good. Typically speaking, feverfew and skullcap are mixed together in a blend to work best for migraine relief. Even WebMD reluctantly admits that feverfew can help with migraines, so they hate it. WebMD is owned by the American Medical Association, so they tend to stick with what the AMA says in regards to their information. And and they hate admitting it. If you go to WebMD and look at any of their herb stuff, they always tell you there's not enough research. My thought is if there's enough research that you can give 8 mice a certain particular procedure and call that good enough for human trials, or for human, they didn't even go to human trials, they just went straight to human use after those 8 mice. Well, then by God, any of these other research articles that I've read that have not only done 8 mice, but they've done dozens of mice and rats and other types of animals and even humans. Well, there is enough research at that point. From my perspective, that's just my opinion. Right? I'm not a doctor. I just play one on TV. So you want to use those types of herbs, and of course you don't want to drink too much coffee, right? You got to limit it to a bare minimum, and then figure out why. Why is caffeine giving you? What else is wrong with your environment? What else is wrong with your diet? What else is wrong with your body that you would have that particular response? Because typically speaking, people don't get migraines due to caffeine unless they go without caffeine for a while after drinking it, right? That caffeine withdrawal that you get. So you need, that would be the best approach would be to figure out why. It goes back to that other, why are you having the symptoms? And it goes to the base of it. So you're not just treating the symptoms. Why are you having the symptoms? You can treat the symptoms while still simultaneously figuring out what's wrong and fix it from there, if that makes sense. Keep bouncing back and forth. I highly recommend the muscle growth extract spread. Big difference. Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Robert. You buy it. That's cool. Yay, one of my customers. Cayenne pepper is pretty amazing. That's a really good additive, and it's the capsaicin in it, but it's really rich in antioxidants, vitamin C, and all that other good stuff, right? So if that's an immune booster though, so you got to be careful if you're looking to do immunomodulation. You would do your cayenne in very tiny amounts, and the only reason why you would do the cayenne at that point would be to make the other herbs that you're taking more efficient, because that is one thing that cayenne is known for. It is known to make the other herbs and supplements that's taken with it more efficient and work more efficiently, including turmeric. It is one of those herbs that helps all the compounds come out of turmeric too. So, now that we know all that stuff, we go to the next page. Next page would be plan your approach. How do you want to use it? How do I want to use this stuff? Okay, so obviously if you have external conditions, you're going to use it topically. So, but that's not always, okay, so you can have internal conditions and still apply things topically. So you have your castor oil packs. Castor oil is known to absorb in, so people can put castor oil on various parts of their anatomy, and even infuse the castor oil in herbs. And then that will actually go internal. And I didn't mention that over in TikTok, so they missed out, didn't they? We got it over here. So yeah, you can apply things topically that'll still help you internally. And it just depends on what you're using and your medium of using it. So 2 things that work really well for absorption in the body would be emu oil and castor oil. They're both known to absorb pretty well. Aloe vera also soaks through the layers of skin fairly quickly, but it's not an oil. Right, it's a water liquid. So once it dries, it's kind of done absorbing in, but it does absorb in too. Then you have your internal. You're taking it internally, so that would be if you're drinking tea, taking capsules, anything that you take inside to help. And you can, there's the other thing with that too. You can take things internally to help things topically. So you can take particular tinctures, extracts, capsules, whatever. To help with exterior conditions like psoriasis or rosacea, even to help heal for pain, but even to help, not heal, but even to help increase the healing process of external injuries, right? So you could take like comfrey root or comfrey leaf, which is known to, comfrey itself is known to increase cell production by like 30%, especially around wounds. So they can heal, it's been known to heal wounds up to 30% faster. which is one of the reasons why they have to be very careful when you use comfrey, to make sure that you get something that soaks down through all the layers. If you have a big cut that goes really deep and you start using comfrey on it, sometimes one of the risks of it is it'll heal the outside before it heals the inside, and that's when you run the risk of getting infections and whatnot. And of course, you have your liquid. So again, liquids can be applied topically or internally, depending on what you're making it and the purpose for it is. Encapsulated, that's pretty standard. You're taking that. Well, there's a couple ways to take capsules, I suppose. I didn't mention that one over there either, but we're not going to say it on YouTube either, just to kind of cover my butt. Yeah, suppositories, and then of course you have your actual capsules that you can take. And then last but not least is extract, which we're not going to talk about in too much depth here. But an extract is not always a powder or not always a liquid, and sometimes you know it depends on how you're processing the particular plant that you're using. It depends on how you're processing it as to how it's used, right? So I gave an example over on TikTok that I know I've seen how-to videos here on YouTube about this particular stuff. I'm just not going to do it, right? I just don't want to run the risk because of my actual niche that I have, you know, natural healing and herbal medicine. We're kind of against the mainstream anyway, so they kind of look for excuses to do that kind of shit to us. So we got to be fairly careful. So you can make extracts out of powder, and if you go over to Patreon, I know I can say that over on Patreon, and when I do the actual video and use that as an example, it'll be all right. It'll be over on Patreon. For those of you who don't know, I have a Patreon page. I think most of you are patrons, aren't you? We're only at 12. Trying to see if I can share it. Yeah, right here. I'm going to share it over my Facebook. Okay, live on YouTube. There you go. Good. Let's see if there's anywhere else. Let's try it there. Oh, I don't think they'll let me. Alright. There. I shared a few. Maybe we'll get a few more people. I'm sorry, you guys. I didn't mean to interrupt. Alright. Topically, internally, liquid extract. Now, extracts can be used topically. They can be used internally. They can, you know, however you plan on using it. But that's just a method of, you know, what they've done is they've taken specific aspects of a plant out, or they've gotten rid of the cellulose part of it, right, or the part that has the least amount of benefit, and you just get the most concentrated form of it. The video will be much better, I'm pretty sure. All right, here's some examples of remedies and methods of use. Now, when they have different types of remedies, if you're fairly new to herbal medicine, or you don't, you know, you've seen the terms and you don't really know what they mean. There's probably a ton more, but these are the ones that are the most common that you see, and you'll hear herbalists use, and some people throw it out there and they don't really know what the heck it means. But they'll throw it out there anyway, and it sounds impressive, you know. I mean, they use that big word, even if they didn't necessarily know what it meant. Oh, we dropped a person. All right. So examples of remedies, methods of use. So you have your first one, which would be your infusion. So what's an infusion? An infusion is essentially a tea. It's something where you've soaked your herb or your medium in warm or hot water for a specific period of time, and the stuff that comes out would be your infusion. This is the least concentrated method, the easiest method to use, other than just eating it raw. But you tend to lose some of the compounds. Heat affects different chemical compounds differently, and even though you're only keeping it at 177 degrees or lower, you still have the chance of hurting some of those compounds, because they can be harmed in temperatures as low as 130 degrees or something, right? So you got to be very careful in regards to how your heat is. But there's your infusion. That would be a tea. And then your next one would be your decoction. Well, this is your tea on steroids, right? So you would do your same thing with a tea, but you use everything in set amounts. So let's say I want to make a base for a glycerin-based tincture, right? So that's a good example. When I told you guys last week how to make a glycerin-based tincture, that's a good example of what a decoction is. You're making a decoction out of the herbs in order to be able to make a concentrated version of what you're looking to do. So for a decoction, say if I'm doing, you know, like a blend for detox or colds or flu or whatever, you know, I would put my 2 ounces of herbs, you know, versus my 4 cups of water, or my 2 cups of water, or whatever, a set amount, right? And, my end result is I want to have 1 cup of water. Still have the 2 ounce first. We're going to restrain those out. So you would make sure to cook your water down to where you only have 1 cup. So you have a specific, and that's the most accurate way to do it, right? When you're doing teas or decoctions, that's the most, because you're doing the exact same thing every time with the same amount. 2 ounces of the herb is going to be the same whether it's a powder or cut and scented, right? Because 2 ounces is 2 ounces. The mass is still there. The volume's still there, not the mass. The mass is still there, not the volume. Mass volume, yeah. So your decoction is a concentrated version. Now they don't last very long, right? You don't want to keep them out. If you haven't turned it into any type of a tincture, you don't want to keep it out at room temperature because it'll get moldy within a day or two, right? Sometimes 3, depending on how warm it is in the environment. In the summer, it tends to happen faster. It'll build a film on top, and then that's it. It's done. You can use it for compost, but I wouldn't personally take it. So keep it in the freezer, or you can can it like you would do regular canning. Mason jar, boil, heat, and all that. Extract we discussed. Extracts are different methods of extracting the compounds from herbs. In certain ones we talked about dry ice. You use dry ice, it'll break off specific parts of a plant, and then you filter it through a very fine mesh. And the stuff that comes out is what you're looking to get. It's a concentrated version of the extract, where the stuff that's left over has all the other compounds, but not the stuff you were looking for, right? Some of these other ones will still fall down into what you filtered, but for the most part, all the stuff that you didn't want stayed behind, right? And that stuff you can throw away, put in your compost, or if you want to make a tea out of it, but you're going to be missing some of the other compounds, right? Then you have your tincture. Now tinctures are made a couple different ways, and we're gonna talk about 3 different types of tinctures, but one of them kind of bleeds into one of the other processes. So when it comes to a tincture is a liquid extract, oftentimes made with alcohol or glycerin, right? Either or. Now the third method that you can use would be vinegar. Now you can use like regular old apple cider vinegar, processed and all that, but you got to be advised you're not going to have any of the good benefits out of it, right? The vinegar acts kind of like a base, which is essentially, if you know anything about chemistry, bases and acids are kind of the same thing. They're just on opposite spectrums of, because a base can burn you as bad as an acid can. So they're just on opposite spectrums of this neutral line. Mostly it's pH related, right? And so you get your vinegar, which is a really good base. It'll extract those properties out of the herbs, and you have to really like vinegar. But if you're just using plain distilled vinegar, it's not going to pull out as many of the properties as you would, but it will still break down the herbs, and it'll still be a means for you to make a tincture out of an herb without having to use alcohol. Okay, because there's a lot of people that are very opposed to having to use alcohol. They have alcohol in it. Oh, it's so bad. They don't understand that they eat bread that has alcohol in it too. The ferment from the bread is there, and you have alcohol in it. You can look it up. There's alcohol in the bread you eat. But because it makes it, hello, it's made with yeast. So the yeast is, even though the yeast has kind of died off, it will still ferment. Believe it or not, you can actually put that in water and it will ferment. So there's alcohol found in bread. And so you're going to get about as much alcohol out of a tincture if you're just using it by the drop like you should, dropper. It's not going to affect you adversely. Then you have a tonic. Now what a tonic is typically, it's either an infusion or a tincture that's made for something that you can take on a regular daily basis. So adaptogens are really good to take on a daily basis. Say like a peppermint chamomile something tonic would be okay because it's kind of calming and relaxing and peaceful. But none of the compounds in there are going to be adversely affect your body if you've taken it over a long period of time. So for instance, you don't want to take, let's see, this one here. This is catnip, essentially, and you could take it all day, every day. Obviously, everything in moderation. But you could drink catnip tea all day. You could eat some of it in your salad all day, whatever. You could eat it and take it every single day, and it'll never hurt you. It'll never build up any type of compounds in your body that'll hurt you. However, if you were to take something like, valerian root, well, that one you don't want to take every day. This one is, a week or maybe 2 weeks on, and then take a week or 2 weeks off, right? Because your body will eventually get to the point where it will become dependent upon the valerian. And then Because some people, they'll take it, it'll work for a while, and they're like, oh, it works really great, so they try to take it every day, and then after a while it doesn't work, so they try to take more. And then that'll work for a little bit until you get to the point you're drinking half a bottle, right? Well, now you're starting to get into things, you've taken so much of it, you're starting to get into things that are going to adversely affect your body. So, if you take too much Tylenol, that's going to adversely affect your body. If you take too much Advil, Motrin, anything over the counter, it's going to negatively affect your body. Well, herbs work the same way, and even though they're typically found to have less side effects than pharmaceuticals, they're still going to hurt you if you don't use it in moderation. So you got to use everything in common sense and in moderation. Number 4 is an demulcent. Now that's a really big fancy term for saying something that it has a lot of mucilage or slime. It's good for coughs and congestion, and for like if people have burns or something in like the esophageal area or in their mouth, they'll use herbs like that because they help kind of leave a slight sounds awful, but it leaves like a slimy film behind. So if anybody's ever had like slippery elm tea or something like that, there's a reason why they call it slippery elm, because once you get it wet, the mucilage just it comes all over you can see it looks like a gel that comes out all over the slippery elm, and you try to wring it out, that gel will absorb so much water, you gotta add almost twice as much water to it that you would typically use when you're making a tincture, especially if you're using a hot tincture, because it'll absorb so much of the water and that mucilage will not release it. It don't matter how hard you squeeze it, it's not coming out. So you have to add more water to it to compensate for the slippery elm. One of the ways that I learned to do it later was I got my slippery elm wet first before I added it, right? And it's best to use a powder. And then I would put it in a tea bag inside the rest of the mixture. So that way when everything was done, I could pull the slippery elm out, which got all the compounds, and then everything was left over, I could squeeze and get it emptied. Am I missing anything? Hold on, let me go back to chat. Just only one like. Just not you guys. Dmso. I prefer emu oil. Oh, thank you, Cindy. Let me see. Were we on last week? We were on last week, weren't we? We were on TikTok, I think. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we were on last week. Oh, it's awful dark. Trying to make sure we have enough light so everybody can see. This isn't the most well-lit room. Trying to work at trying to figure out a good different way to set this up so I can get more light in here. Our star only has the one light up there, so. Alright, so we're going to the next thing. So the demulcent is, it's either going to be a cough syrup or a lozenge. There's different ways to make those. The recipes are all over. At some point they'll be in the book. And you have your poultice. A poultice is essentially just anything that you happen to use. You can either wrap it in a cloth or you can put it directly on. Like you can take some aloe vera and rub it directly on, or just hold it on and leave it there for a while. That would be considered a makeshift poultice. A poultice is typically a bandage that has a bunch of the herbs and everything in it, and it's covering a wound to help the healing process. You have your hydrosol. Now, depending on what you're looking at, the most common way to make a hydrosol is to add essential oils to water, or other herbs to water, or other herbs and essential oils to water. Essentially, you're making like a light infusion, and then you strain it all out to where it's just the essential oils in the water, and then you can spray it. Use a spray bottle. And it works best as a spray because you need to get the air through it, right? So you put it instead of a stream, just like a mist sprayer, and that's the best way. That's one way you can use it. You can apply it topically, like on your face or on your hands or something. You can use it as an antiseptic or a wound healer, something maybe make the pain go away. Analgesic in a small cut or a sting or something. And I've used hydrosols, but I'm not like a huge fan. It's not. I mean, I'm sure they work, but there's other ways, I guess. But there's a lot of people that swear by them. Then you have your serums. The serums are typically made for the face, and they're usually oil and a water base. So with some essential oils, depending on what you use, and how you make your stuff. And Yeah, so you have your anti-aging serums, you have skin rejuvenating serums. You know, these things are just, you know, they're very basic. They're made just for simple usages. Okay, so then you have your balm. Now, balm is like a salve. Your balm is like a salve, only it's on hold on, there's somebody from TikTok. It's Michael. Hey. On YouTube. There he goes. Maybe Michael will come in. He'll give us 13 people. Unless we lost somebody. Oh, yeah, it gave us 14 people. Maybe I didn't. Did I? Maybe I didn't. No, I don't think I did. Somebody texted me. Last night, I was so tired. I ended up doing a bunch of other stuff and getting some other things squared away. But I didn't have the oomph to do a live. So, all right. You have your balms. Now, a balm is a salve. Essentially, oftentimes they're made with beeswax, but you can use other mediums. Beeswax would be the base with an oil, and you would use an infused oil, and you mix it with the beeswax in a higher. So it's going to have a consistency of close to like a lip balm. It should be fairly hard. You know, you don't need a lot, so you just rub the top of it, of the balm, like calendula balm. You would just rub the top of the balm and then apply it to whatever, and you know you don't have to dig in and get a lot. Um, those are good for the summertime, but you still got to keep them out of the sun because when you have your beeswax will melt at about 144 degrees, 145 degrees, gets that high and turns into a liquid. So at that point, it doesn't matter what you do. So you don't want it in your purse, you don't want it in your car, your console, or any of that. Even if you have it in a tin, because sometimes they will leak through the tin. And you don't want that beeswax mess everywhere. It's hard to get out of stuff. And you have an ointment. An ointment is typically a creamy balm, you know, so it'll either be paste or it'll be a watered down version of a balm. Watered down meaning it'll have more oil and less beeswax. So if you're using a ratio of 2 to 1 for the balm, you're going to use a ratio of 2 parts beeswax to 1 part whatever. Then you would drop this ratio down a lot, so maybe a fourth of the beeswax to 1 part oil. So it's still going to be kind of hard, but it'll still it'll be more of a creamy consistency versus being really hard. Then you have a salve, which is the Goldilocks in between the two. A salve is kind of soft, so you can scoop it out, right, and get a dollop on there. Those are good for like cuts and scrapes, splinters, stings, bites, those kinds of things. Salves work really well for that. But you'll use them a lot faster than you'll use a balm. But see, for a balm, you would use for like arthritis or if you have a rash or something like that. You don't want something that's going to be real heavy on there. You just want something you can lightly put on there. Then you have your ferments. Your ferments are fermented herbs, right? So any of your, like one of my biggest ones, and if you're on this channel, you probably have already seen it. You've probably already seen it, but the red clover, fermented red clover, what they've discovered is that fermented red clover stops osteoporosis. It doesn't slow it down. It doesn't, make it a little bit less severe. It stops it, like in its tracks. It makes it to where there's no more osteoporosis showing signs, no symptoms of it anyway. But that's by fermenting it. You can still take the same red clover by tea. You can take it by infusion. You can take it even by decoction or tincture. And you won't get the same benefits, or even capsules. Well, I didn't put capsules on here, but the ferment is the one that'll stop and prevent the osteoporosis. It's I happen to think that things like beer, as long as you keep them unprocessed, and so you get your sauerkrauts, where you have your probiotics. Well, I happen to think that some of our herbs would be more beneficial if you could ferment them versus necessarily taking them out as a tincture or something like that. That's just my opinion. I don't know. I don't have enough ways to test that to make sure to see how it would be more efficient. But I happen to think that it stands to reason from my perspective that if it works with red clover, it's got to work with other herbs too. If you can use the tincture or the decoction or the infusion of the red clover and it just slows down the process versus taking a fermented version of it and it stops the process, it tells me that there's something about the fermented process that makes it more efficient than these two or these other ones, right? I mean, wouldn't that kind of stand to reason? That's a good question. There's lots of different ways you can do it. You can use yeasts, right? So you can use beer yeast or something like that. When it comes to things like cabbage, just use salt. Cabbage and salt. Those are your only ingredients to make sauerkraut. And sauerkraut is literally just fermented cabbage. So I did the same thing with my beets. When I did beets, I just used salt in the beets. And they fermented and they're pretty darn good, actually. I liked them. Other types of foods, kimchi, then the kombucha, that's all fermented foods, right? The ferment has the benefits, and and I can't help but think that they're adding different, they're adding pomegranate. Well, if you look at the medicinal properties of pomegranate, so you essentially have fermented pomegranate, so you're getting a lot of those medicinal properties. It's not processed because it's live ferment. You're getting all the medicinal properties on top of it being fermented. So it's going to be more bioavailable. In my opinion, it's going to be more bioavailable and more useful for the body if it's fermented and you're able to take it that way. Trying to keep up on comments too. Is it the blooms only for which? Oh, for the red clover? Yes, it was. I only did the blooms for the red clover. And you think about dandelion wine, right? It's fermented dandelion as long as you don't process it. All the benefits from the dandelion would be in that wine. So it'd be loaded with antioxidants. It'd be loaded with all the vitamins that goes with that. It'd be loaded with nutrients and other anti-inflammatory properties. But if you're just using the flowers, you're only going to get the benefits that are in the flowers. Now, what I would do personally, if I were going to do something like that, I'd take the whole plant, dandelion, right? I mean, I know the dandelion wine, the flowers are the main part of the flavor and everything. But if I would use the whole thing, you have inulin that's in the roots, you have inulin in the leaves, so you have enough stuff and other compounds in the leaves. And if you made dandelion wine out of the whole plant, even if you only just threw a few of them in there, right? Say you did a lion's share of the flower buds, and then you just did parts of maybe half a dozen of the leaves and roots, chopped up and powdered really fine. Those from what I understand, you'd have to look online, but a lot of the times there's natural yeast in the flower. They don't even add yeast. They add a little bit of sugar, or they'll use honey, and they'll let it ferment that way. And of course you have your emulsions. Now, what an emulsion is where you take two different mediums. So you have two different kinds of liquids, and you're trying to combine them into one product. So a good example of an emulsion would be a lotion. Now, this is our lavender vanilla body lotion, hand and body lotion. It's essentially a massage lotion. It has two different mediums. Now, it has a base oil, and if any of you who are on my Patreon, you can go over to my Patreon page. I do have some free how to make, like one of them is how to make a poison ivy lotion. Tells you how to make the lotion. Well, you use an oil, and then you use an aloe vera gel. You can also use milk, or you can use, which you have to refrigerate it, and then it's only going to last for so long, just so you know. But you could use milk. You can use water, though water doesn't work quite as well, because it doesn't have any other compounds to keep it together. I prefer either aloe gel or aloe juice. That's my other medium, my water medium. And then I'll use my base oils. My base oils typically contain 4 or 5 different oils. Like I think my current one that I have is avocado, grapeseed, flaxseed, and emu oil. Those are the only 4 in there. And there's not a lot of emu oil, just enough to make it more bioavailable, make the other stuff more bioavailable. And that's a base oil. So you would mix just the base oil to keep the base oil to use. And then you have to blend them at high speeds. What we have to do with this, in order to get it to emulsify and stick together, is you have to put them in a blender or a food processor. And if any of you guys have made the lotion from have any of you guys actually made the lotion from my videos on that? If you've made the lotion with that, you'll know that it goes. You start blending, and everything just kind of goes like this, like a normal blender would do. And then after a minute, there's like a transition. And it just kind of, everything just goes, it just smooths out, poof, you've got the lotion. And then you just keep blending, and then you got to scrape and blend and scrape and blend until everything's all fully blended. But you end up with a lotion that works really well. You've made it yourself, and you know exactly what ingredients are in it. Like a lotion like this, it has 4 ingredients, minus the herbs. That's 4 ingredients. You have your 5 ingredients. You have your 4 base oils and your aloe vera. There's your 5 ingredients plus your herbs. But as far as your base of the lotion itself, you only have 5 things: 4 oils and your aloe vera. Maybe your essential oils if you happen to use essential oil with it too, because you can add those to your lotion as well. Where are we at? Did I miss anything? Yep, mead works well. History of using herbs. I'd love to make dandelion wine. Just have to get a bottle. Do you use preservatives for this? I do not. You can put citric acid in it, but I mean, you just make small amounts. So you just make enough that's going to last you for, Well, okay. So for instance, with the lotions we make, they'll last like a year. So you get a little 2-ounce bottle. Now also, conversely, the lotions that we make, you can take like a size of a pea, like a little dollop of a pea, and it'll do my hands up to like here, fully, like all the way cover, and then within a few minutes, there's no oily residue because of the emu oil. So it absorbs it all the way into your skin, and then your skin just feels moisturized without being wet or greasy or have a film on them. And they'll smell like whatever essential oil it'll smell like whatever essential oil you have on there all day. Pretty neat. Anybody have any questions on any of these before we go on? We lost somebody. Probably lost a couple. I wonder if I can get moderators here. Community moderation. Who wants to be a moderator? Let's see. Oh, Sarah, you're usually a moderator. As moderator. All right. Now Sam, and then let's see, who was the other? Is Durf here? Fred, are you here? I don't see Fred anywhere. Okay, so Dmsos is a dimethyl something or other. It's a chemical. And this is way back in the comments, by the way, guys. So I kind of jumped back. I know I kind of touched on it, but I want to address it a little bit more. I'm not a huge fan of chemicals. Now, it does the same absorbing as all the other stuff as the emu and the castor oil, but actually probably more efficiently, but it's a chemical, right? So I'm reluctant. That's just me, though, right? When it comes to your natural healing, it's all in you. It's what you want to do for yourself, right? You're the architect of your body. You're the one that can determine how that all goes. Okay. We're almost done. Holy crap. Where are we at? Did I miss anything? Nope. Okay. Next. Formulate your remedy. Formulate your remedy. You want to pick your herbs with purpose. Now, the first thing you want to do, since you've done all this other stuff, right? You've figured out what the problem is. You know how you want to use it. You want to, you know everything you need to know now. How you're going to use it, what you want to use it for, and your end result. Now you want to figure out where you're going to put your blend together. Okay, so one of the first things you do is do your research on that condition. Now I'll give you some examples. A good way to do that. So let's say you have irritable bowel syndrome. Okay, you have IBS. So you would look online and you would do a search. What's a good way to put it? Natural solutions for IBS, or herbs for IBS, or homeopathic remedies for IBS, or something like that, right? You would do the research for that condition. So what they'll do is they'll give you a list of herbs, right? So I typically avoid WebMD, other than what not to do, right? WebMD tells me exactly what information not to use. but you've done your research, you have your breakdown of your herbs, you want to figure out which herbs you want to use and why. So it's best to use a blend. What I mean by that is you have herbs that work really well by themselves. Hawthorn berry, one of the best heart herbs in the world, right? It's a complete cardiovascular tonic. It's one of those herbs that you can take every single day, cardiovascular tonic. You can take it every single day without harm to your body, and it works on the entire cardiovascular system. So from the lining of the blood vessels to the strength and the brittleness, between the strength and brittleness of the blood vessel, it can smooth out uneven wall linings of the heart. It can help balance your blood pressure, whether you have high blood pressure or low blood pressure. This is like the full meal deal when it comes to heart health. But in and of itself, that's good. But it's better if you have other herbs that work well with heart too. So so something else that works well would be maybe butcher's broom. Now, the reason why butcher's broom would work because it helps to strengthen the lining of the walls of the blood vessels to keep them from getting hurt as bad. Horse chestnut is also a good heart herb. It's a cardiovascular, not as much of a cardiovascular tonic as the hawthorn berry, but it's a good heart cardiovascular tonic in that it helps to strengthen the heart itself. So you would use a blend, not me, but not you either, but use a blend of hawthorn berry, butcher's broom, and horse chestnut. Where you probably want to have more of the hawthorn berry than you do the butcher's broom and the horse chestnut, because it's more of a cardiovascular tonic, but they don't do the exact same thing in the same way. So that's what the very next thing is. Don't use the same herbs, right? You don't want to. So if I'm trying to fight a cold, I don't want to take echinacea and black-eyed Susans, right? They're literally part of the same family. They do the exact same thing. So if I'm adding both of those, I'm not getting any additional benefits, right? And I'm not approaching the problem from another angle. I'm approaching the problem twice as hard from the same angle, and which isn't necessarily going to solve the problem. So a good blend that would work well with that, you would have you'd have your echinacea, and then you would switch, and then you'd add some golden seal or some Oregon grape to it. But you don't want to add golden seal and Oregon grape. Why was that? Well, because they both have berberine. So if you're putting golden seal and Oregon grape together, they both have the berberine. You're just doing the exact same problem that you did with the echinacea. So you want to find herbs that approach the situation. For instance, I'll give you a for instance. Several years ago, it was right around when came out. I did a different blend than the one I had before. I had one that's just antiviral drops, right? It's just a simple blend. It has olive leaf and a few other herbs, and they're each of the herbs attacks a virus from different direction, right? They stop the virus. They stop a virus from replicating, or they'll stop a virus from adhering, or they'll stop a virus from being able to eat, or they'll stop a virus from they stop a virus from different stages of the life cycle. And but now I haven't seen a single herb that will do all of it by itself. So you get something like olive leaf, which will affect 3 stages of the life cycle of a virus. And then you use elderberry, which has some other antimicrobial properties that affect the virus in a different way, like preventing it from adhering or preventing it from replicating. So you have those two. Well, then you want to add a third one, garlic. Garlic will help boost your immune system, so the immune response will be a little bit stronger, but it also weakens the microbe due to the allicin that's in it. So you have the approach. You're approaching the virus from several different angles, and you're using a blend to make it more efficient. On top of that, I added colloidal silver as my water medium. So instead of using just plain distilled water like you would typically do with a tincture when you're diluting it, I diluted it with colloidal silver. And so that way you get the benefits of having colloidal silver on top of having all the herbs that go with it too. And you're attacking the virus in different ways. Oh my gosh. The history of the I must admit, okay, do you use no. Did you ever figure out how to make acorn flour palatable? We decided, well, okay, so we have it. We still have all that acorn flour. We haven't used it, but it smells awful. It tastes awful. So we got to thinking that about the best way would be to add it to other flours, right? So use like any of the ancient grains or something like that, farro or any of that, and that would certainly help limit it. But other than that, no, I can't think of anything that makes that taste. It's awful. Oh, hawthorn? Well, you'd have to do your research. I can't say. Right? I'm not allowed to say that technically. Legally, I'm not allowed to say that. Do some research. I think you'll find some interesting benefits of hawthorn berry. No, I understand. I got it. And then, okay. So on the same note, you don't want to use too many herbs. So you got to find that Goldilocks zone in between the two. You don't want to use the same herbs, and 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 you don't want to use just one, but you don't want to use too many. Because I'm using 15 herbs. How many benefits? I'm gonna have to take so much of it to be able to get the benefits from each of the herbs that I mean, I'm drinking a half a bottle just to get the benefits of all the herbs that I want to do. So you really want to keep it kind of small and more geared towards what you're looking to accomplish. Um, More geared towards what you're looking to accomplish on a personal level. That's why you kind of want to make your remedies per condition, per person, per condition, per person. There's different ways to preserve your remedies. When you're trying to preserve them, you don't want to just put them in plastic, right? Plastic will absorb a lot of your compounds or will bleed their compounds into you. So you want to keep them in glass is usually a good thing. Stainless steel if you have it. Ground glass jars work really well to help keep UV light out, so that even if it's out in a storefront or something, it'll help to block the UV rays and be damaging. Blue works kind of too, but it's not as good as the brown. You can use steel tins, so you would get tins that stabs come in, right? Those are good. You want to make sure they're steel. You want to try to avoid aluminum if you can, and plastic if you can, but if you can't avoid it, keep it in there anyway, just keep it out of the sun. Alright, mason jars are good, but they're clear glass for the most part. You can freeze your herbs, so you can slap them in a Ziploc bag, squeeze all the air out of them, throw them in the freezer. They'll stay good a year or two. As long as they're in the freezer, they're not exposed to a lot of sunlight and stuff. They should be fine. And dry and dehydrating, you can put them in a dehydrator and dry them out, and then put them in Ziploc bags or whatever. And then of course you have your vacuum seal. Vacuum seal them in a package. They'll stay good for years. I mean, realistically, vacuum seal package. As long as you keep the air out, it'll be just fine. Hang on just 1 minute. I will be right back. Sorry about that. Copper's okay. I mean, copper has a lot of antimicrobial properties, and they're not really, it's not a harmful. That's not a harmful element at all. Some people will even do like a colloidal copper. I'm not. I've seen colloidal copper. I just can't get past that green. But copper is not bad. I mean, but it's going to be significantly more expensive than any of the other stuff you use. So if you happen to have some handy, then that's great. But I wouldn't go to the extra expense. It'd be a lot cheaper just to buy some brown jars. I mean, it looks cooler, I suppose, but it wouldn't necessarily be that much better. We ended up with 13 people. That's not bad. I'm going to probably have to, the video that gets posted with this, I'm probably not going to do the, this presentation. I'll probably, because I have Pictory that actually Pictory's worked up the video, so I haven't done a voiceover yet or anything on it. I had to do it twice because it, the first one they did, it added other things I didn't want it to add, so I had to, it's frustrating. Yeah, very, very frustrating. Oh wow, we've been on here for a minute. So is there any questions that anybody has tonight? We've gone way later than I thought we were gonna. So now would be the time to do it. And you gotta see what, I have to pop over to TikTok and see what they say. And stay tuned for this. I'm gonna do it. This video is, I actually gotten the script. You guys are on Patreon. You've already seen what the script is gonna be. And those of you who don't know, I have a Patreon account, the Herb Guy, where I do an herbal academy. Right now we're in the midst of doing our herbal coursework for Herbal Medicine 101. Yes, I'm still working on that. I've just been getting these other things going. And right now is like a super busy time for me. So, but I will be getting other things taken care of. So there will be fewer issues. Ooh, get all these things put away. However, see if there's any questions. Thanks for apparently we're probably, I appreciate it. Thank you for the compliment. We're probably gonna be back live here again next week. I mean, I only got 12 people, but if I can't get anybody from, if we're gonna have an issue with TikTok, well, we'll see how it goes. But if anybody else has any questions or anything, let me know.